Uncle Paul spent a lot of time there. He's on the city commission, the county commission. I think he was on the county commission by the time I went to work there. And he had a stand-up desk, actually it was a watchmaker's table desk, had drawers and stuff. And he was a watchmaker and knew how to do jewelry and stuff. But he would stand in the back and wait on customers. We had a counter out front, and then our watchmaking stuff, there was a little walkway in front. Then our watchmaking desk were back there. And Eddie was on one side. He'd been a watchmaker there for years and years, and it was very pleasant and helped the customers. And then Uncle Paul's desk, and Uncle Paul was not there because he went to the meetings. But he had a stand-up desk, and he never sat down. He always stood up. Had a phone right there by his desk because he was always talking on the phone. Had a long cord and stuff. And people would bring their jewelry to get it fixed, and we'd fill out an envelope. What was wrong, their name, their address, and stuff, and then we'd estimate when it would be done. Usually it was a couple weeks or something. And then we'd put the item in the envelope, tear off the tag, and they'd have the tag. And then we'd put the envelope in the safe. And at the end of every day, or actually in the morning, they'd go on there and get the envelopes out and pass them out to the jewelers to get fixed, or watchmakers. We took watches in too. One of the things we did most of the time was we replaced batteries in watches, and they showed me how to do that. And we had these special knives that were kind of like a dull knife that was this solid blade, and you could pop the backs off of watches. And there's some that had a tool that you unscrewed the backs on fancy watches. And usually there's a strap across the battery and a little tiny screw holding it. I mean, tiny screw. And I wore glasses at the time, and Grandma had a set of loops of 5 power, and then you put the other down and make it 10 power. And she said, "Do you want to use this?" I'm not down there anymore. And I said, "Yeah." So that always helped me. I could get the 5 power one out and look and see what was going on there. And I got so that my dexterity improved the more I worked on those watches. There was a while there I just couldn't hardly do anything. First I couldn't get the case opened, then I couldn't get the unscrewing done, and then after that, then I couldn't get the case back on the back of the watch. You have to click it on a certain way and get it on. And Uncle Paul was always right there to help, or Eddie was there and he'd help me, and showed me what was going on and everything. One time a customer came in with a watch, and Paul saw him coming in the store. He knew everybody that came in. He said, "Okay, go along with me on this, Clark." And he went over and wait on this guy. So I went over, got the watch. Oh, I need a new battery. Okay. So I went over, and Eddie was gone to lunch, and so I was sitting at his desk. I was trying to pop the back off. He says, "Oh, you having trouble getting the back off?" I said, "No, I got it. Popped it off." Okay, and we test the battery to make sure that was the problem. And then we had a filing cabinet of tiny little drawers that had the batteries in them, and it was different sizes to fit in different watches. Got the battery and cut it back down. And he says, "Are you having trouble getting the case back on that?" And I said, "Yeah, I am. It's a little tough." And so then he says, "Okay, pound the hammer." And we had a little leather mallet, and we used to tap on rings and stuff, and just use it for little things. So I started pounding it on the desk with the mallet. And he said, "Can't you get it? Here, let me." And so he took it and took the mallet and wham, wham on his desk. "Oh, got it." Clicked it shut. And he walked, "Oh, how you doing?" And the guy was just aghast. We were working on his watch, pounding on it with a mallet. And it was loud bangs. He was like the whole time. But it was a pretty good show that we put on. We did it for quite a lot for people. And sometimes people come back and we were really doing something with the mallet, and they say, "Well, what's he doing back there?" "Oh, he's fixing watches." But, so it was a kind of a old joke. but it still worked out. And another thing that really happened is every time the time changed, people would come in and they didn't know how to reset their watches. We reset about 30 or 40 watches each every time the time changed, when the time of year, when we went for daylight savings and back. That a lot of digital, they didn't know how to press the buttons, and some of them didn't even know how to pull the stem out and twist it and change the time. So we did all that for them.